Hey folks, you're
Absolute Packer podcast initiating in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello out there, Packer Nation. This is the Absolute Packer podcast with Andy and Elliot. We're on episode 4, which means the regular season is just upon us. So the preseason is finally over, thank the Lord. And I'm tired, truth be told. Real quick, I think for all the listeners out there, I just got back from Colorado. I ended up hiking Pikes Peak over this last weekend. So what's funny is I missed a fair amount of the flurry of activity that was going on to get down to the 53-man roster because I was busy climbing a mountain. But now I'm back and I'm catching up on all the stuff, and there's a lot of stuff to report on. What do you think, Elliot?
Yeah, you sound tired.
It's funny. I sound tired. I am tired. My body is recovering, but I feel really good when you climb that much ground and you take that much time. I mean, the sense of satisfaction you get from that is great. And I think I mentioned this to you right before we started recording. I ran into probably 3 Packer fans on the way up the mountain. So even you can't escape Green Bay even when you're going up a mountain into desolate territory.
No doubt. That is true. So you want to just jump right into things?
Yeah, let's just bang right into it. So let's talk about.
I just had a couple things because I know you didn't catch much of the game. So there's a big interception from Kentrell Brice. Did we keep him?
I don't believe we did actually.
And
I'm gonna have to search on the fly on some of these. I don't think
that's
he did.
cool. And I feel like Ty Montgomery looked better. Those are my main. And I had a note about Jamal Williams, but I don't remember why. I didn't put why.
And he's one of the rookie running backs. Yeah. I'm looking at some of the notes. I can't exactly tell what they are, but I'm pretty sure they kept all the running backs.
Yeah, I think so. So we were reading that Deadspin article. I think they mentioned in there that we have 25 running backs, something like that.
And they're all converted from other positions into running backs. Yeah, it's funny. That's a great annual tradition that we'll focus on later.
So, I don't know if you have any comments on that stuff or if you want to just kind of go into some of your notes on the roster changes of the week.
Yeah, truth be told, I think most people know out there that the 4th preseason game means nil. It's you rest all your starters, the backups play the whole game. I mean, are there some players that need to show well to make the team? I think the answer to that is yes. There's some select players that need to show themselves, but the roster is pretty much set, and you're watching a lot of guys that will be either unemployed in the league or they'll be signed to a practice squad. So the 4th preseason game, if you're looking for good football to watch, that ain't it. But they still have to do it because it's the NFL and there's 4 preseason games. So to your point, I didn't see it, watch it or anything because I was doing other things. But the more important thing I think is what happened after, and that's the 53-man roster. And there was a flurry of activity, man. When I woke up on Saturday. That was the day we climbed the mountain. I got back and I kind of laid down and I was trying to go to sleep, but I was still amped up. And then I looked at my phone and I had a ton of notifications. I'm going, holy cow, look at all this activity. A lot of things happened. And a lot of the things that happened were very un-Ted Thompson-like in a good way. He signed 2 players, 2 outside linebackers from different teams. Ahmad Brooks, who we'll talk about right now, that was a name that came up, I think, during the week because he got cut by the 49ers, and he was still a decent player. He's a little bit older. He's 33 years old. But look, let's be honest. The whole reason the Packers were even interested in signing a player like that, who has a checkered past, believe it or not, is because they are razor thin at outside linebacker. The 2 guys they had backing up, Clay Matthews and Nick Perry, were basically cardboard cutouts. You know how I feel about Kyler Fackrell and Jaron Elliott. They weren't even guys. They weren't doing anything. And so I'm sure Ted looked at that and went, and they didn't do anything in the preseason, went, goodness, we need to shore this up. And I think what we're seeing here is the new Ted, where he's actually signing some other free agents, not big names, but names nonetheless, because, there was a glaring hole and he filled it with a player from a different team, which in the past he would never do. So I
think it's awesome.
Golf
I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, it was a 1-year deal. I think, the salary, considering what was for Ted's purposes, was pretty big. I think it was $5 million a year, which is, that's cheap, relatively speaking. But for Ted to sign from another team, that's a lot of money. So maybe Ted's turning over a new leaf. Who knows?
I don't know. I think they had two, right?
Yes, the other one they signed was actually he was released by let me see what was his name, Chris Odom from the Falcons. So he's another outside linebacker. He's more of a, I guess, since he got cut by the Falcons, let's say he's more of a fringe player because that's the other thing. If a team cuts a guy, there's a reason he gets cut. Typically, it's not to let another team get a good player. It's because he wasn't good enough to play. But sometimes you have a lot of you have a lot of bodies at a good position. The Falcons might have had a lot of really good players at outside linebacker. So I don't know a whole lot about Chris Odom, but I know that he and Ahmad Brooks will definitely help because Kyler Fackrell and Jayrone Elliott weren't going to do squat. And as I'm talking about this, Jayrone Elliott got traded to the Cowboys for like a conditional pick, and it wasn't a high pick, so the Packers gave up on Elliott. I mean, and I don't blame him because he was getting hurt, and he never did anything. I mean, and let's be honest too, Clay Matthews and Nick Perry both got hurt in the preseason. You saw that. And I mean, if you had to have the guys behind him start, it's going to be a long day. Nothing. I mean, the defense would have slid back precipitously, and that was a problem that they couldn't ignore. So those were the two big roster transactions in terms of the cut downs that I noticed.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know. I think
that's a great word. It's because Brooks is 33, but he's better than what they had. If he stays healthy, he's still better than those guys. I don't think he's going to come in and be an all-world beater, but he's better than what they had, and so I'll give him credit for that. Yeah.
So,
let's see. Oh, Lane Taylor. Yeah, that's the next item we have on here. So, Lane Taylor his story is really interesting. Just for a real quick background on him, for those who don't know him that well, he was the guy who took the place of Josh Sitton when they cut Josh Sitton out of the blue last year, who was an all-pro left guard. And Lane Taylor was an undrafted free agent. It wasn't even a draft pick. Signed off the street a couple years ago by Ted. And everybody was all up in arms going, oh, my God, they're going to stink. And Lane Taylor last year didn't even have a good camp. He didn't look very good. But then when they cut Josh Sitton and he stepped in, he did great. Was he a Pro Bowler? No. Was he solid? Yes. And so he got signed to a contract extension, I think, just today. And the terms are real team friendly, 3-year deal, about $15 million, I think. And, like I said, he's not a world beater, but he was pretty darn solid. And I think he realized last year when they cut Sitton that, they're like, hey, it's up to you now, So good on him. And it's good for the team, obviously, because they didn't have to break the bank. And he's a good dude. I think he played at Oklahoma State. Real soft, kind of just goes about his business, soft-spoken, I should say. Not soft. But that was a good piece of news because you want to have as many of your good to decent players, in general, locked up to contracts on any position on the offensive line. That's good. So I think that's another really good thing that happened. So there was a flurry of activity in many good ways. I don't know how much you know about some of the other happenings and some of the cuts. There was one cut that I'm sure some Packer fans were probably like, oh, why did you let him go? And that was Taysom Hill, that quarterback.
But they were talking about the hope was that he'd be on the practice squad, right?
Well, he already got claimed.
I missed that. Okay.
So, and that's part of the, the risk. If you expose a guy to waivers, he could get claimed. But look, he was a nice story, but he was playing against second, third, and fourth stringers. Yeah. Just because you got to temper the enthusiasm. Did he have talent? Yes. Was he better than Joe Callahan? Yes. Could he be a starter? Doubtful. No. That's just my own thing. So, and the Saints actually claimed another guy, that McCaffrey, the wide receiver, the white wide receiver. They claimed him too. So they claimed two of these guys. And again, they looked decent in the preseason, but they're playing scrubs. I mean, you got to, when you see these guys compete against first stringers, they usually disappear. That's the reason why they don't make the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that the Taysom Hill was the only one that somewhat surprised me. But it wasn't a total shock. Everything else that happened, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So, ready. They have what they need going in the regular season, and here we do.
I'm excited for Sunday. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm getting back into the football, like the Uber. What do you want to call it? The Uber. Almost like it's funny. It's like anxiety for me.
Yeah,
in a way. It's like I get really anxious around it.
I think we all do. It's like an intensity and an anxiety. Anxiety is a good word for it. Yeah, it's a perfect word. we're excited, we're pretty sure, but yet we're afraid. It's anxiety. Yeah, it's great.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's like going to the first day of school, which is tomorrow for all our kids. I had to put my daughter to school, and she's excited but nervous.
My first day back too. I teach OTGB.
Nice, cool. Congrats. What are you teaching football?
No, thank God. Because you think our coaching staff is bad. I would be terrible at that. Yeah.
No, only Dom Capers. Oh, I didn't say that. No, kidding. Yeah, nice. So, I mean, with that, I think that pretty much sets up, the roster and the X's and O's kind of portion of what we want to talk about there. Again, there's a flurry of activity, and I think we hit on most of the big stuff. It was a lot of stuff, and like I told you, I picked a hell of a time to be out of the state and doing something, to get completely pulled away. Because when I got back, I was like, oh, look at all these moves. Look at all this. Look at all that. I just climbed a mountain and I can't feel my body.
Right.
It's funny. But
so we had, I dropped a couple links into our document, Sports Illustrated. I don't know if you have any comments on that. It's interesting.
There's a couple. Yeah, I would say number one, and again, this is Andy Benoit, who wrote for SI/MMQB. So we're sort of just breaking down what he had written, which actually just came out today, September 4th. The first item he has on there, number one, it's like 10 things about a team is kind of the theme that he goes on. And the first sentence is fantastic. Aaron Rodgers is a paradox. And what he basically says is Aaron Rodgers is one of the only quarterbacks he's ever seen that can purposefully look away open guys in order to buy time to get somebody else down the field. And we see that all the time, and he makes it look easy and he makes it look great. But I'm telling you, the league is littered with guys in the history who try to do that same thing, can't do it. And if you don't throw to the open guy and you don't move the chains, you aren't going to be a quarterback in the NFL. You won't even be a backup. So his talent is just so immense that basically coaches, or his own coaches and other, higher ups can just look past some of these simple things that he does because his athletic talent and his acumen at the position is that high. It's really incredible. And I think he broke it down well in that first paragraph.
Yeah. So I think I just kind of skimmed it, and the thing that I was excited about is item number 4. It looks like we're going to have some good tight ends this year, and I think that is going to be. I think that's crucial. And they pulled out some stats here. The Packers were 10-3 when we had Jared Cook, and when we didn't, 2-4. And I didn't know the statistics to that level, but yeah, I mean, I feel that. So
yeah, and I can expand on it a little bit. There's a reason that Jared Cook is obviously he's basically guys like him or Martellus Bennett. They're almost like hybrid wide receivers. They have a lot of athletic ability, but they're big pass catchers. So they play tight end. But when you look at the past few years where the Packers have struggled to move the ball even with Rodgers, it's because they can't throw anywhere in the middle of the field. Every route they run with the receivers, every pass that's being thrown is going to the sidelines. You know what I mean? It's going to these outside wide receivers. They had nobody in the middle that could open up the field and open up that coverage until they got Jared Cook last year. Before that, it was Jermichael Finley. And then when Finley went down, they had a dearth at tight end for like 3 years, and that's when you saw the malaise sink in. So it took Ted way too long to realize that they needed to find ways to open up, in the middle of the field. So then they went out and got Martellus Bennett, who we all know is, he's an established guy and he's a really interesting dude, but they also got Lance Kendricks from Wisconsin. So they got 2 tight ends. They're not exactly the same type of player, but they got those guys to catch balls in the middle of the field where in the past they have sorely lacked. Like I said, you see every other pass going up the sideline, opposing sidelines to our wide receivers. And if the defense knows what they're going to do all day long, they're not even going to worry about the middle of the field because you got nobody who can beat you over the middle of the field. So
yeah. And then number 8, Clay Matthews needs to rebound. Yes. I mean, I don't always notice everything that happens on defense, honestly, but Clay Matthews did not come up big last season. And some of that's injuries, but I think that they nailed it, that it's hard to tell if it's injuries or just age, and hopefully it was just injuries.
He's not coming back. He's not going to come back to what he was. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, the reason he played well a couple years ago was because they moved him to inside linebacker, and nobody in the league was ready for that. And he kind of took the world by storm. He didn't get a lot of sacks, but he helped the run game when they moved him to inside linebacker. So last year, that was in 2015. So in 2016, they moved him back to outside linebacker, which was his natural position. And I immediately said, this isn't going to do anything, because he wasn't getting it done before that at outside linebacker. And lo and behold, he disappeared. Now he got injured again. I've kind of said this in the past. Clay Matthews at 90% is the drop off from him being 100% healthy to 90% is so severe. It's not like other players. Everybody plays hurt, but Clay Matthews basically has to be 100% healthy to be effective. If he has any drop, he's invisible. I mean, he was, he at outside linebacker last year, he would get one-on-one with, poor left tackles or poor right tackles, guys who were inferior draft picks and all that, and he would get stonewalled. And what happened with him is, he's paying for what he did early in his career. He's an established veteran, and he beat his body up. I mean, you saw him early in his career. He was throwing his body around everywhere. He didn't care. And so he's a shell of himself. And, I mean, he's better as a starter than what they got, but I would be willing to bet that Ahmad Brooks is not as good, but he's pretty close to what Clay Matthews is. The Clay Matthews you saw of old, he's never coming back. He's not. He's just not.
So, all right. So not
obviously my
yeah. So I mean, I think you're a little bit harsher than I am on that, but I mean, but I'm afraid you might be right. So no argument there.
And Nick Perry's he's good, but Nick Perry they got forced into paying him that big contract because they had no other options. I think Nick Perry's a nice player, but I think Clay Matthews is better than Nick Perry, and that kind of tells you all you need to know. Those two guys are decent. Mm-hmm. They're not Jags, as I call them. They're not just bodies. They're a little bit better, but not much. So, I think you're going to see heavy rotation with Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, Ahmad Brooks, and this other guy. I don't think Kyler Fackrell's going to see much of the field. I don't think they want him to because he's not good. I mean, unless there's injuries, you shouldn't see him. So I was excited for the Ahmad Brooks signing because he was a better player that was on another roster that we could got. So I'll give Ted credit for getting him. But I think this is Clay Matthews. It could be his last year with the Packers. I think they'll cut him next year because of salary.
So is something banging on over there?
No, I'm probably doing it again.
Oh.
I'm probably moving things over.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, well, I mean, it'll yeah, I'll chop it.
It's the chair.
I'll chop this out, but yeah.
Sorry.
No, so when you're talking, I can't take it out. So don't worry about it. So anyway, the on the Cheesehead TV top 10 thing, I mean, so it's very, it's very different. They're Packer fans, obviously, right? So number 8, 9, and 10 are interesting predictions. Aaron Rodgers will set a new career high in total touchdowns. Rodgers will take home his 3rd NFL MVP, and Rodgers and the Packers will face Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I actually, wish I could bet against the Patriots because I can't imagine that they're going to make it. I really just don't see that happening.
You don't think the Patriots?
No.
You don't think the Patriots will make the Super Bowl?
No. And I mean, and I think the Packers have even odds, against who else is in the NFC. But it's hard to get there 2 years in a row, and
they've done it 2 years in a row quite a amount of times. So.
But I think that Brady's past his prime. No matter how hard he wants to fight it,
I agree. I mean, it's not a shoe-in, but
I think that Atlanta collapsed more than they ran away with it last year. So we'll see.
Could be, but it's I look at the AFC too, and I go, who scares you in the AFC outside of the Patriots? I mean, are there some other good teams? There's some decent ones, but it's like.
Yeah.
In the AFC, it's the Patriots and everybody else. I mean, that division they play in is an abomination. Do you know the division the Patriots play in? They play in the same division as the Bills and the Jets.
I know.
Two teams that are just dumpster fire teams.
Yeah.
And then the Dolphins, who just lost their starting quarterback, now they got Cutler. I mean, they play in a dumpster.
That is absolutely the worst division. Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, and the Packers theoretically have a pretty easy division this year too. But yeah,
I would agree.
So
I would agree with that.
I mean, so from that standpoint. We should make it, and so should they, but we will see.
In terms of these predictions on Cheesehead TV, I could see that Rodgers gets either close or has a really high touchdown ratio, and that's because of the new tight ends, obviously.
Uh-huh.
The receivers, are pretty darn good, but he's got 2 tight ends. As long as they stay healthy, and McCarthy, I think, uses Ty Montgomery the right way as a dynamic threat back there, I could see that happening. And if that happens, if Rodgers has numbers that get close to 2015, he'll win the MVP award. So I could see 8 and 9 happening. Getting to the Super Bowl, I've gone to this in the past. Rodgers can only do so much. The defense has to come through in some regard. And until I see the defense do something in January, and that means stop somebody in the playoffs, I'm never going to pick the Packers to win the Super Bowl.
I know. In the playoffs, they gotta just step the ball.
And the reason why they get trounced in the playoffs is they're hitting all the good teams, playoff teams, right? And what's happening there is the Packers are getting exposed for how bad their defense is. Their defense does okay versus decent teams. It does really well against crap teams, and it just folds like a cheap suit against good teams. It's been exposed many times that the defense cannot stop good teams. It just can't. So until they can prove it, I'm not picking the Packers to win the Super Bowl. If the defense looks decently improved and it's around the middle of the pack, Packers are the team to beat. Simple as that.
Yeah, no question. So the Deadspin article, you got anything to say about that? Because I want to save a little time for talking about the Seattle game. See what
sure.
Thoughts. The
Deadspin article. So for those who don't know, Deadspin does this every year, and they call it the Your Team Sucks, insert year, and then every team. And they've done it for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years, maybe more. And so the Packers one they just released, and it's every bit the sarcastic, passive-aggressive indictment of the team and the fans and the front office. There's little elements of truth within it, as always, but it's also really entertaining to read. I mean, Deadspin is a subsidiary, or it's a part of Gawker Media, and those guys, we know how they write. A lot of people know how they write, so this is right up their alley. In terms of some of the highlights, the comment about Jordy Nelson getting on Hunter's wall was pretty good. I love comedy, so that was really good. Let me find the actual quote. I'm shocked. Here it is, quote unquote. I'm shocked Jordy hasn't been clubbed by a hunter and mounted on the wall of a Rhinelander log cabin. Yeah. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, this article was written by a self-proclaimed Vikings fan, so he's obviously got a stake in the game to really stick it to the Packers and the fans.
But it was still funny. It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was great. Every one of these are always well written. I mean, every now and then I try to go into these. I haven't done it this year, but you go into the teams are going to be bad. Like in this instance, like this year, I need to find the one for the Jets, because the Jets might be an all-time bad team this year. They're like a once in a generation. They're just going to be absolutely horrific. They have basically no NFL talent on their roster. I would love to read the Deadspin Why Your Team Sucks, the Jets. That would be
yeah
for this year.
It's a double length article.
Yeah. So I love how they bullet point everything out, and then
it's great. It's great.
Really go on.
And
there's elements of truth.
I'm gonna try to make sure that in our notes I'll put links to those in the show notes.
Some people may not know Deadspin that well, or just read this article. This is definitely worth it because it's tongue in cheek. You have to be able to take a joke, and there's a little elements of truth throughout the entire article.
Yeah. So Seattle, you want to talk about the game coming up?
Yeah. Actually, the timing on that is good too, because I had forgotten. I can't remember exactly what day this happened. It was when I was in Colorado preparing to go climb Pikes Peak. It might have been the day of or the day before, but Seattle actually traded to get another defensive lineman. I can't remember which team, but they traded and got it was the Jets, actually. The Jets had like one good player, and they ended up trading him because they're trying to tank.
Right.
So the Jets front seven, the Seattle Seahawks, their defensive line is scary, very scary. It's the best in the NFL. So it's good that our entire offensive line is intact, and we got some decent backup now because they are going to be going after Rodgers. And Seattle this year, they have Eddie Lacy, as we know, and from what I understand, he hasn't had a very good camp, and some people are questioning if he's even a fit for their scheme. Russell Wilson might be the most underrated player in the NFL. I don't care what people say. He's not the most fantastic thing ever, but he needs to stop being underrated. He's a really great player. He just happens to be a short quarterback. That's it. Fantastic athlete, great arm, great touch, can run. They don't have much for an offensive line. That's been their Achilles heel. So, I mean, the one saving grace is we're playing them at home at Lambeau. I think it's going to be a really good game. I don't think it's a walk in the park at all. I think, both teams are actually, when you look at the collective team on the whole, I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think the Packers have a better offense. I think Seattle has I don't want to say significantly, but appreciably better defense. I mean, they're stacked. As you know, in the past they've had an all-world defense. I don't know if it's all-world now, but it's still pretty darn good. So, yeah, it should be a darn good game. I think the Packers have a really good chance to win because it's at home, but I could see it seesawing back and forth.
And Vegas agrees with you. So the Packers are 3-point favorites.
Which basically means they're getting the points because they're at home.
Yep, exactly.
Otherwise, it's a push.
Yeah. So, and I think we all know that. And I think that's what we're all expecting is, I don't know. To me, like I look at the schedule, that's the game of the year. I mean, not knowing anything else about the season yet, right?
And it's the first game of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing Seattle hasn't had to do yet since we played them with Aaron Rodgers is they haven't had to defend the kind of tight ends we have over the middle of the field. So that will be a new wrinkle that could really help us. And it helps that it happens early in the year when there won't be film for other teams to look at. There's no film on how they're going to use Martellus Bennett or how they're going to use Eric Kendricks or even Montgomery. So you'd think, and see, here's the thing. In the past, the Packers need to get home field advantage in the playoffs. They need to get, the road to the Super Bowl. The NFC comes through Lambeau. So if you lose this game, is it the end of the world? No, but they need to beat them because Seattle could be a team at the end that you don't want to lose in tiebreaker where you got to go to frickin' Seattle in the NFC Championship game again. They need to get some home playoff games, and it's been years since they've done it.
That's why these first two games are crucial. Like winning both of these is like I cannot even say how big that is.
Yeah, and they play Atlanta in the second game, right?
Yeah, at Atlanta. Yeah.
So I mean, I could see him. I could see him going 2-0. I could see him going 1-1. I could see him going 0-2. I'm not kidding. And the reason I don't know is because of our defense. I'm confident in our offense. I just don't know our defense. I just don't know.
Hey, we all feel that way. So I don't know if you have anything else to wrap up with. We can kind of call it done. But do you want to do another recording prior to the Seattle game and go more in depth, or do you want to wait till after the game?
I think it'd probably be good to wait till after because it's going to be pretty quiet, for lack of a better term, until then. But then there'll be a lot to talk about after that game, without question. Okay, and you and I are both going. Yay! Yep. That would be quite an atmosphere.
Yeah, sure. I can't wait. I'm actually going to go to the concert thing on Saturday night too. I think. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Is that on Oneida or where is that?
I don't know exactly. Yeah,
I would go to. It's like the kickoff concert thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
We'll see.
Nice.
I don't know.
So yeah, I think that we can probably save until after that game. So now it's going to be a little lull, but then it's going to lead up. Once the weekend starts to come, once it gets to Thursday and Friday to Saturday, it's Green Bay. Wisconsin. Right. We're going to feel everything ramp up around the town, and even me included for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me a ticket.
Yeah. So I actually feel like it's been a little bit subdued.
I tend to agree with you. I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, it doesn't. And you know what? I think the reason for that is a lot of what I've gotten back to. The Packers fans in general, I think, know how good Aaron Rodgers is. They know how good the team should be, but they're looking at the history and what they've shown. What's their their resume, and the resume has said, look. I'm going to call it what it is. Anything short of an NFC Championship game this year is a failure. It's a big failure because. Right. They made it last year. They got housed. They have to at least get back. And so it's almost like the regular season is window dressing because a lot of people know that Aaron Rodgers is great. The offense is going to be good. I don't think anybody has they know what the defense is. The defense has been junk. And so it's going to have to be a show me thing. I think that's a huge part of it. It's basically some entitlement from the fans and myself included a little bit where, they're like, that's all great. We know how good they are, but look at them in the past. They do well in the regular season and they get housed in the playoffs. So I think that's part of the thing.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but I mean, we could be Browns or Jets fans, but hey, but Trader Ted, he went out there and did some stuff, baby.
Well, you know what? We're not in a rebuilding year, so that
we have Rodgers. It doesn't exist.
We have expectations, so and he's going to get a huge contract, so we gotta get some.
Could happen very soon. They're going to back up the Brinks truck. I saw somewhere that it's entirely possible Aaron Rodgers might be the first $200 million NFL player.
I think that's actually like the expectation now that it'll be $200 million.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, we're talking upwards of $70 million guaranteed and potentially $30+ million per year.
So we will see if we're up to it, but I would like to record the night of the game.
Okay.
If we can handle that and then get it, get it so that it's out by Monday morning.
Yeah.
So
I'm good with that.
So that's my goal. It will remain to be seen if we can get that going. But I'd like that to kind of be our release cadence. So
I hear you. You'll be amped
so,
up and fresh, and everything will be in your mind for sure.
Yeah, and I think that anybody who is listening, I think that the regularity, I think is kind of crucial.
That's true. That's a good point. The cadence.
Yeah. So then, my last thing that I wanted to throw in there is that I would love it if anybody who wants to would call in. So that we can, especially after the game. So I know that might be tight depending on how we record, but if anybody has any predictions before the game, I think that might be fun. Or thoughts afterwards, or wherever that, if they want to have comments on the season, really any aspect. So the number for that, you can call, leave a voicemail, 508-535-5468. I'll put that in the show notes as well. That's all I got. You got anything else?
I think we covered it, baby. Go Pack Go.
Yeah, go Pack Go.
Podcast.
Chair.
I know, right?